Yes, sir. Sure.
You're welcome. Could I get somebody from over here? Anybody? Not yet. Okay. Okay, sure, we'll take that up. All right. Oh. Oh, goody. Which exhibit is this? Okay, and make sure they're agreeable redactions first. All right, so 397 with these redactions. Okay, there we go. If I don't give it to Jamie now, I'll forget. Okay. All right, that takes care of 397. Now we're going to have to probably start the video tonight and probably have to finish it tomorrow morning, correct? By the length of it? Okay. And are the exhibits, so you're going to be switching back and forth again?
I think, Your Honor, that we're just going to run this off of ours. I believe the parties have worked out the redactions.
Okay.
I think I could be wrong.
Or is there any objections to the exhibits?
I don't think we've talked at all about what exhibits were coming in.
That's music to my ears.
I know. I don't think we had any. We've just exchanged the objections for this. So.
Oh well, in that case, I think we're handling introducing them to the extent they get introduced, and we'll discuss any objections.
That's how I understand it. It would be
okay.
Have a witness that when it.
Oh, so we're just going to do objections as we get to them.
Yes.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That works out. Okay, so we'll start it when we're at 5 o'clock. We'll see where we are, and we'll find a good breaking point. Okay. All right. Are we ready for the jury then? Make sure you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. You're ready. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the court is striking Ms. Gina Duder's testimony in its entirety from the record, okay? Therefore, the court further instructs you, the jury, to disregard her testimony in its entirety. Understand? All right, thank you. All right, your next witness?
Your Honor, we call Dr. David Kipper by video designation.
All right, Dr. Kipper.
And I represent Amber Heard. Could you please provide your full name?
David Allen, A-L-A-N, Kipper, K-I-P-P-E-R.
And what is your business address, Dr. Kipper?
153 South Lasky, L-A-S-K-Y, Drive, Beverly Hills, 90212, California.
Now you're a doctor, correct?
Yes,
And an internist?
yes.
How long have you been practicing medicine?
Since 1977.
And I noticed on your website it says you provide concierge health care. What does that mean?
That means I provide health care on a retainer-based arrangement.
What do you mean by retainer-based arrangement?
Patients pay an annual fee, and all services are included. And I'm available 24/7.
Now, you also practice, part of your practice is addiction treatment, is that correct?
Correct.
And you've written a book on addiction?
Yes.
What's the title of the book?
The Addiction Solution.
And by addiction, do you mean addiction to drugs and alcohol?
Yes.
Is there any other addictions that you practice treating?
Well, there are behavioral addictions, but those are far less common.
And in your practice, you've dealt with patients who've blacked out from drugs or alcohol?
Yes.
Who is Lisa Bean?
A former employee in my office.
And what was Ms. Bean's role in your office?
She was a receptionist.
And how long did Ms. Bean work for you?
I don't have that specific information. I believe it was about 3 years.
In working with Ms. Bean, did you find her to be honest?
No, actually.
Or why was she not honest?
She was inappropriate with certain patients, beyond what I consider to be professional. She discriminated in some regards to some patients. She was divisive in the office and created a lot of problems with the other staff.
Did you terminate her?
Oh, no, she quit.
And who is Debbie Lloyd?
Debbie Lloyd is a nurse that I have known for many years who has worked with me on home care and addiction cases.
And is Miss Lloyd an employee or a contractor with you?
She's a contractor.
Does she still contract with you, Miss Lloyd?
Yes, until recently. She now has a new position, so I'm not able to have her services at this point.
What was Miss Lloyd's role in Mr. Depp's care?
She served as his RN, as his registered nurse.
And was Lloyd paid by you for Mr. Depp's care?
Yes.
So would it work that you would bill Mr. Depp for the care that you gave and Miss Lloyd gave, and then you paid from that?
Yes.
And who is Erin Borum?
She's an RN that was employed to help care for Amber.
Was Miss Borum also a contract nurse?
Yes.
And so did Miss Borum have any role in Mr. Depp's care?
Only if Debbie was unavailable, Erin would step in, and vice versa.
And did Miss Borum work with you on anybody else besides Mr. Depp or Miss Heard?
Yes.
Does Miss Borum still work with you?
Miss Borum now has 2 little kids, so she's not really available.
I understand. I have 2 kids myself. When were you first contacted about treating Mr. Depp?
Somewhere in the spring of 2014.
And do you recall who first referred you to Mr. Depp?
He was referred by another patient.
Did you talk to Tracy Jacobs at all about Mr. Depp?
Yes.
What did you understand the business relationship was between Miss Jacobs and Mr. Depp?
That she was his agent.
Why don't we put up, Alex, can you put up Kipper 3, please? Dr. Kipper, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is an intake evaluation that I had with Mr. Depp regarding his treatment.
And do you keep these notes in the normal course of business?
Yes.
And the notes are meant to be accurate?
Yes.
And did you take the notes or did someone take them for you?
I took these notes.
Is May 22nd, 2014 the first time that you met Mr. Depp?
No.
Your Honor,
When did you?
sorry, thank you. Your Honor, I move to admit Defendant's Exhibit 220, which is what Dr. Kipper was referring to there.
Any objection to 220, Defendant's 220?
Yes, Your Honor. Foundation, authentication, hearsay, and 403.
All right. Hold on, let me catch, I can get it here. It's fine. 220.
And Your Honor, Dr. Kipper testified just now that these are his notes that he keeps in the regular course of business of his meeting with his initial consultation with Mr. Depp, which is what he does as a doctor, and and it's his medical records of his report with Mr. Depp. So I think he's established the foundation of that.
All right. Yes, sir. Any response? Mr. Moniz?
We're just having a slight technical issue pulling up the exhibit, Your Honor. I apologize.
Okay, that's
1 minute. Your Honor, we would stand on the hearsay and relevance objections. There's a lot of material in this document that is not really germane to the issues in this case. At minimum, and to the extent admitted, it should be admitted in redacted form. In addition, it's not clear that there's any hearsay exception that would apply to everything in here. Not everything in here is a statement of a party opponent, I don't believe. And finally, the medical records reflected here go well beyond any possible relevance to the issues in this case. It's not inappropriate. We would stand on that objection.
All the statements in here are statements of Mr. Depp, so they either be a party admission or it's use of, and it's Dr. Kipper it's his evaluation of Mr. Depp to treat him for his, as you'll see, his addictions. So I think this is all relevant. There's no hearsay, and if there is, it meets the exception. It's all Mr. Depp's statements. They've not even argued it, but it's a business. It's clearly a business record.
It's clear from the document, Your Honor, that there's more in here. That the records here are at minimum broader than is germane to this case. I mean, this goes well beyond any medical records that could conceivably be relevant. We would respectfully submit to the issues in this case.
I understand, but given latitude as to the family history and family medical history, so I'll allow 220 into evidence. Okay.
Okay. Understood, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess can we publish it to the jury?
Not if you're watching.
Oh, well, the way we've that's fine, Your Honor. We can just have him testify, and then it's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
He's going to testify.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Depp, prior to May 22nd, 2014.
I met him a couple months before that as just an initial introduction to discuss possible treatment.
And where were you when you first met Mr. Depp?
He met me at my home office.
And did you have any notes of that meeting at the home office?
No.
What did you discuss with Mr. Depp at that first meeting?
At that meeting, I discussed with him my involvement in helping him with his substance issues.
And what substance issues did he say he had?
So to answer your question, Mr. Depp was seeking treatment for substance abuse and wanted to detoxify from his substance abuse.
Did Mr. Depp say what substances he was trying to detox from?
Yes, and as indicated in this note, it was polysubstance, so there was alcohol, opiates, benzodiazepines, and stimulants.
So you referenced the note, which is Kipper 3. In your meeting with Mr. Depp in the months before May 22nd, 2014, Mr. Depp was looking to detox from alcohol, opiates, benzo, and cocaine.
Those substances were in his history. The substance that he was at that point concerned about and abusing were opiates.
And when you say he was concerned about the substance he was abusing was opiates, was this in the conversation before May 22nd, 2014?
I can't remember specifically.
Okay. So you had this initial conversation with Mr. Depp, and then you had this initial consultation with him a few months later. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you met with Mr. Depp in Boston?
Yes.
And Mr. Depp was filming a movie at the time?
Yes.
And in your notes, you say he had history of self-medicating behaviors involving multiple substances of abuse. These include alcohol, opiates, benzodiazepines, and stimulants, cocaine. Is that accurate, what he told you?
Yes, that's in my that statement's in my notes. Correct.
Okay. And in addition to opiates, was Mr. Depp addicted to any other prescription drugs?
No, other than opiates, no.
What is roxycodone?
It's an opiate.
And what is Adderall?
Adderall is a stimulant.
Okay. And was Mr. Depp addicted to Adderall?
No.
What is Xanax?
Xanax is a benzodiazepine.
This first paragraph on this page, these are notes based off of your discussion with Mr. Depp.
Yes.
And then on the second page where it says physical examination, that's just what you conducted at the time on Mr. Depp?
Yes.
And where it says impression on the third page, that was your impression of Mr. Depp at the time of May 22nd, 2014?
Yes.
And under that, the plan, that's documenting your plan for Mr. Depp going forward?
Correct.
Mr. Depp paid for this visit?
Yes.
When was the plan to start treatment of Mr. Depp?
After he completed his current film.
Dr. Kipper, do you recognize Kipper Exhibit 4?
Yes.
And what is Kipper Exhibit 4?
It's a progress note dated June 11th, 2014.
And did you keep these notes in the normal course of business?
Yes.
And did you take these notes?
Yes.
And the notes are meant to be accurate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is you had mentioned it before, but what is polysubstance abuse?
Your Honor,
Poly is multiple.
you could pause.
So-
Thank you.
It takes a second for it to catch up.
No,
so-
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you. Your Honor, I move to the admission of the Defendant's Exhibit 246.
246.
And it's the same type of medical record that was just admitted of for 220.
Any objection? I'll give you a moment to read it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one moment. Understanding Your Honor's ruling on the last record, I think we'll anticipate that the exhibit can come in.
All right. So I will take that as no objection. All right. 246 in evidence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Multiple substance issues, multiple substance abuse.
And you were going to be treating Mr. Depp for multi-substance abuse, correct?
I was going to be treating Mr. Depp for opiate issues.
On the bottom of the first page where it says impression, that was your impression of Mr. Depp at the time? Where it says polysubstance abuse?
Yes.
And were these the drugs that Mr. Depp was taking at the time, which is at the bottom of page 1 of Kipper 4?
I'm sorry, am I relating to the first entry under impression?
It says, what does it mean where it says dopaminergic imbalance with lithium 300 mg bid to be increased to 300 mg TID?
Those were medications that I had planned to use upon our treatment.
So all the medications that are on Kipper 4 under impression, those are medications you plan to use with Mr. Depp, is that correct?
That's correct.
And on the next page where it talks about opiate dependence, you're right, we'll maintain on current Norco dosage TID until current filming is completed in mid to late July. Mr. Depp agrees to undergo detoxification with clonidine, robaxin, bentyl, and anxiolytics. I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry. But is that correct?
Yeah, you did a good job. That's what it says, yes.
Okay. What does TID mean? Or, you see where it says
3 times a day.
3 times a day, okay. And Mr. Depp was also going to undergo a sobriety program, is that correct?
Yes.
And it says to be regularly drug tested in my office. How regularly was he to be drug tested, Mr. Depp?
That was dependent upon his progress and my understanding of how he was doing.
And if he was progressing well, how often would Mr. Depp be drug tested? Okay, you can answer.
The answer is what I said. It would really depend, Adam, on how he was doing at the time and how he was progressing through his treatment.
Do you recall how many drug tests you gave Mr. Depp in 2014?
No.
You gave him at least one, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. I'd have to check through my records.
Okay. And Deborah Lloyd was going to be Mr. Depp's nurse, correct?
Correct.
You can take down Kipper 4. And can you put up Kipper 5, please?
And, Your Honor, we would move into evidence Plaintiff Exhibit 40.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 40. Is there any objection?
So my understanding, you're putting in, you want to move in the entire document, 123 pages.
We have redacted portions of it. Yeah. It's just 40.
Your Honor, I would just have to look to make. I'm generally okay with it. I'd have to, with 123 pages, and then there's certain redactions. I just would need to see
All right.
what was redacted. I'm generally okay with
All right.
omission of the document.
So I'll enter it, but with the reservation for redactions that need to be made. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We can
Understood.
do that. All right. That's fine. 40.
So I don't know if they're thinking of publishing it, but I would ask that they not publish it and just let the video play as he testifies to it, and then we can discuss what needs to be.
Is that okay?
Given the lack of agreement, confirmed agreement on the redactions, Your Honor, I think that's
Okay,
fine. We should
sure.
just play the video.
Do that.
Thank you.
And Kipper 5 is a long document. It came out of your files. Do you recognize the document?
Yes.
What is Kipper 5?
It's a progress note dated the 12th of June, 2014.
So this exhibit, Kipper 5, which I will refer to throughout the your deposition, is a multi-page document that is progress notes throughout from multiple dates that came out of your files. Do you know who created these progress notes?
I created these progress notes.
It wasn't Miss Lloyd.
No, these are my notes.
Okay. All right. And you kept the notes in the normal course of business?
Yes.
And again, the notes are meant to be accurate?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back up. So there's 6/13/14. That is your notes.
Correct.
Okay. And it says, met with patient in his apartment. Patient continued to be pleasant and cooperative. He stated that he initially started taking opiates after some dental work and became dependent on them. Do you recall that conversation with Mr. Depp?
Yes, those are my notes.
Okay. And it's also accurate that patient is fearful of coming off of opiates but knows what he needs to do?
Yes, that reflects the conversation I had.
Okay. And then patient also expressed some emotional trauma which causes him depression and anxiety?
Also true.
And if we go to Kipper 54 of Kipper Exhibit 5, these are the medications that Mr. Depp's assistant gave to you?
Correct.
And going down, it's accurate where it states that patient states he currently takes oxycodone 50 mg BID and oxycodone 30 mg at bedtime?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I'm going to scroll down a bit here. And we're going to go to Kipper 60 on Kipper Exhibit 5, the notes for 6/22/14. This is again a note that you prepared? Is this a note that you prepared, Dr. Kipper?
I'm reviewing this.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. You see where it says in the middle, patient spoke about his difficult childhood and current mood swings.
Yes.
What did Mr. Depp tell you about his mood swings?
That he had evanescent changes in his mood from good to bad.
And did he give any more information about what a bad mood would be?
No, it was implied that would be depression, sadness.
About anger?
That was not. I don't remember him saying that.
This note also said that he'd been depressed for the past 3 days. Right above where we just looked.
Yes.
And Alex, keep this up, but put out Kipper Exhibit 6, please.
We would Your Honor, we would move into evidence Depp Exhibit 42.
42. Any objection to 42?
And this is another redacted document, counsel.
So mine's not redacted yet, correct?
I don't see any redaction.
We have a redacted copy, which we can provide. Also, I believe this is unobjected to on our exhibit list.
All right. So pending redaction.
Well, I'd have, the copy we had didn't have redactions, so I'm not sure. Non-redacted, I'm happy to have it included, but I would need to see the redactions.
Well, I'll reserve on redactions then, as we did with 40, okay? So 42 in with redaction
Understood, Your Honor.
decisions, okay.
And Dr. Kipper, do you recognize Kipper Exhibit 6?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a summary of the treatment and encounter with Mr. Depp from June 22nd to June 24th of 2014.
And you keep these notes in the normal course of business, correct?
Yes.
And again, they're meant to be accurate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And these notes reflect that you saw Mr. Depp in Boston again?
Correct.
Okay. And the second paragraph, you write, we discussed the need for compliance with his medications. We also discussed his nicotine habit and agreed we would address this when we completed the opiate and benzo detoxification. Mr. Depp's filming will be completed around mid-July, and we discussed the planned detoxification. Mr. Depp prefers to do this in his home in the Caribbean islands. The anticipated duration is between 10 to 14 days, and he will be completely isolated without any professional or personal obligations. Does this reflect the discussion you had with Mr. Depp?
Yes, it does.
And you also discussed that Mr. Depp understands that a nurse, Debbie Lloyd, will assist me with this program, and I will initiate this withdrawal and supervise daily, visiting him at the end of his treatment to design the next steps in his therapy. And this protracted therapy will include a 12-step private counseling and personal psychotherapy and couples therapy with his fiancée, Amber. Both are in agreement to this plan. Does that reflect the conversation you had with Mr. Depp?
Yes.
And was misheard at this conversation as well?
I don't remember, but the last sentence implies that both were in agreement. So it's very possible that she was, but I honestly can't remember.
And during this detoxification, who was going to be with Mr. Depp at his home in the Caribbean islands?
His fiancée, Amber, and the nurse, Debbie Lloyd, and whatever staff members he had.
Where was Miss Lloyd going to be each day in the Caribbean islands?
She was going to be on his property in a separate area.
And who was administering the medications to Mr. Depp?
Miss Lloyd was giving these medications and supervising that, and there were periods of time at night during the evening, early morning, that Miss Heard was also helping with this.
And would there be times where Miss Heard was administering the medications to Mr. Depp without Miss Lloyd being present?
Correct. Under supervision, but without being present.
And when you say under supervision, what do you mean by that?
That Miss Lloyd would give Miss Heard the direction on how to provide these medications.
It wasn't necessarily going to be physically present there when the medications were delivered to Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Depp admitted to you that there may be traces of cocaine since he'd been using the substance prior to the initiation of this program, correct? Is this note correct, what you write here in Kipper 6, that Mr. Depp admitted there may be traces of cocaine?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, let's just go back to Exhibit 5. And if we go to easier this way. You see the note of 6/24/14 at 1200?
Yes.
Is 1200 the time?
Yes.
And it said, are these your notes again?
These are my notes.
Dr. Kipper, these 18 pages came from your production, and I'll represent to you that there were no drug tests that I saw for 2014 or 2015 for Mr. Depp. You know why that is?
The only thing I can, the answer is no. I don't understand that. We had a flood in our office in 2014 October. The office above us flooded our office and the basement, which is where we kept certain records. But I'm not sure which records relating to Mr. Depp would have been involved in that. But other than that, no.
Would drug tests for Mr. Depp for 2014 and 2015, would those also be kept electronically?
No.
Who did you work with to conduct the drug tests of Mr. Depp?
Yes, I ordered the drug tests.
And what company did you work with?
It appears that it's MD Lab. That's the lab we use.
And the drug tests that we do have, they came from your files, correct?
Correct.
And they're meant to be accurate, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that drug tests that you took of Mr. Depp in the 2016 through 2019 period showed Mr. Depp testing positive for cocaine, correct?
Correct.
Drug test showed Mr. Depp being positive for cocaine, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And for THC, Mr. Depp was also positive for THC, correct?
Correct.
And for benzo, is that correct?
The answer would be yes. I'm looking for benzo. The answer would be correct because he was maintained on benzodiazepines.
Okay. And how long was Mr. Depp on benzodiazepine?
He was on benzodiazepines pretty much throughout our relationship during this period of time.
Wasn't one of the objectives to get him off of benzodiazepine?
It was, and we actually used a medication to accomplish that initially, but he didn't tolerate that medication very well. Not everyone does. So he was put back on his benzos.
On page 3 of Exhibit 7, what's being shown here under where it starts with cocaine metabolites?
This is a listing of substances with reference ranges. And I think if you scroll down, you'll see his specific analysis related to that.
And on page 4, Robert Wells was a name for Mr. Depp, is that correct? An alien? Correct.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And this is a drug test for 11/21/16, correct?
Yes.
And what is it showing Mr. Depp positive for? What drug?
Positive for cocaine, amphetamines, and benzodiazepines.
And on page 5, this is a drug test for November 21st, 2016, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's showing, what drugs is it showing Mr. Depp was positive for?
It shows cocaine, benzodiazepine, cannabinoids, and amphetamines.
And again, you did take, drug tests were taken of Mr. Depp in 2014 and 2015, correct?
Correct.
Now, you had mentioned before, and the note said that the plan was for Mr. Depp to detox on his island in the Bahamas. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And were you going to be going to the island at any point? Were you planning to?
Yes.
Was it going to be throughout Mr. Depp's entire detoxification, or when were you planning on being at the island?
I was planning to see him and did see him towards the beginning as we initiated treatment, and towards the end when we were transitioning from that treatment into the next phase of his treatment.
Now, on 8/14, it says, arrived on island today. Plan is for patient to continue to take routine meds through tomorrow at HS. At that time, he will not take his oxycodone, and detox medications will be initiated. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that you arriving at the island, or Miss Lloyd arriving at the island?
That's Miss Lloyd.
So that 8/14 note is her note, correct? So some of these notes are hers, and some of these notes are yours.
These notes going forward are her notes, appear to be her notes.
Okay. What type of system were you putting these notes into?
I don't understand your question.
The notes just appear to be continuous, and you said some are your notes and some are her notes. I'm trying to understand how they got together.
Because I put all of his treatment notes together to be in one place.
Would Miss Lloyd type these notes, or were they handwritten?
She would type these notes.
Okay. And then who put them all together?
I did.
Okay. You see 8/9/14, patient expressed fears of never feeling normal without his drugs. See that?
I see that.
Was that, did Mr. Depp ever express that to you?
Yes, in some form he discussed that with me.
Hold on one second. Oh, sorry. You see at Kipper 71, where it says MD's flight has been canceled. Arrangements are being made for him to arrive on the island on 8/12/14.
Yes, I see that.
Okay, so is it accurate that you arrived at Mr. Depp's island on August 12th, 2014? Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Did you go to assess Mr. Depp on August 15th, 2014, according to these notes?
That's correct.
And by the way, fiance is misheard in these notes, correct?
Yes.
And patient is Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
And this is at Kipper 77 on Kipper 5. Text from fiance that patient is upset and irritable. MD and RN went to assess the patient. Is that accurate that you came to see Mr. Depp at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
And after receiving a text from Ms. Heard?
Correct.
And Mr. Depp, the note says he being Mr. Depp, states he had a fight with fiance and is questioning whether or not he can emotionally and physically handle detox. Do you recall this conversation?
I can't remember that conversation, but I do know that he was struggling at that point.
And how was he struggling?
Again, he was frustrated. He was uncomfortable physically.
Dr. Kipper, this is a email. Well, do you recognize this document?
I do.
And what is Kipper 8?
This is an email that I sent to his sister, Christy.
Christy Dombrowski is Mr. Depp's sister?
Correct.
Okay. And you sent this email to Ms. Dombrowski on August 18th at 7:54 a.m., correct?
Correct.
This email was shortly after you had met with Mr. Depp in the note we just discussed, correct? Oh, 7:54 Pacific. So it was sometime in the morning in the Bahamas, correct?
I guess. I don't have that calculator in front of me.
It's either 3 or 4 hours ahead. So it's either 10:54, maybe it's 11:54 in the morning.
Correct. I guess that's right. I mean, I assume that's right.
Okay. And you wrote this, and why did you write this email to Ms. Dombrowski?
We were planning to transition back to Los Angeles. We had completed the initial phase of his detoxification, and I wanted to update her as to my impressions on how he was doing and how we would proceed going forward.
And you wrote this to Ms. Dombrowski because you were concerned about Mr. Depp, is that correct?
I wrote this so that she was aware of where we were in the process of his treatment.
And you wrote this after he had an incident with Ms. Heard, correct?
I did not witness the incident. I wrote this after we were called to see him because there was an alleged incident, but he clearly was uncomfortable at that time when we came to see him. And again, we were getting ready to transition off of the island, and I wanted Christy to have a clear understanding of where we were at that time.
Can we pause? I was going to move for
And then at 12:30,
Thank you. I was going to move for the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 268.
268.
And, Your Honor, we're going to have a substantial hearsay and speculation objection to this exhibit. This is a communication from Dr. Kipper to a third party. It's hearsay from start to finish and not within any exception, to say nothing of the fact that it contains speculation.
Okay.
I think there is certain hearsay in the first paragraph and in the third on the second page, but the rest of it is Dr. Kipper's impressions of Mr. Depp.
It's an out-of-court statement offered for the truth, Your Honor. It's
All right.
hearsay.
I'm going to sustain this to hearsay, okay?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
you and Ms. Lloyd met with Mr. Depp?
Yes, according to these notes, yes.
Okay. And do you know, was this now in the Bahamas or was this back in Los Angeles?
I need to go back to the date, not the time. Can you scroll up? Thank you.
8/20/14?
And I'm just looking at my calendar. Yes, we were now back in Los Angeles.
And in the notes on 12:30 on August 20th, Mr. Depp stated he was done with the process and no longer wanted MD and RN services. You see that?
Yes.
You recall Mr. Depp telling you that?
Yes.
And you recall Mr. Depp saying that there was tension between him and Ms. Heard?
Yes.
Was the plan for Miss Her to take a few days for herself?
Yes.
And Mr. Depp is it true that Mr. Depp wanted to stop taking all the medications you were providing him?
Yes, that's reflected in this note.
Now you mentioned you had, you did text with Mr. Depp on occasion, correct?
I believe so, but I really can't remember any specific time or message that I sent to him.
Dr. Kipper, Mr. Depp has produced a number of texts in this litigation between you and him, and they're in this chart here, and we're not going to go through all of them, I promise you. But I want to ask you about a few of them, and we'll do this kind of throughout the deposition. I have control here. Okay. And on 8/21/2014, it says Dr. David Kipper. This 310 phone number, was that your phone number at the time?
Yes.
Okay. And this is a text from you that says to Mr. Depp, it says, "Glad you're better today. Respect you as much as I love you. You're impossible not to love, but an easier job not to respect. You're making my job a pleasure and honor, and a few sleepless nights. Stop firing me. I know what I'm doing." You recall sending that text to Mr. Depp?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been working with Mr. Depp at this point? As of August 21st, 2014.
And can you define by working with him? Are you talking about specifically the detox, or are you talking about our initial meeting?
Well, even if you go with the initial meeting, how many months?
Your Honor, as I mentioned in the deposition, Defendant's Exhibit 1063 is a long list of text messages between Dr. Kipper and Mr. Depp, a number of which are going to be testified to today or Monday. And I would just ask that the ones that they testify to, we would provide in a redacted form, which would just be the text that they're testifying to. And it would be for a number throughout. I can get up each time, but I was hoping I wouldn't have to do that.
Your Honor, I think we're going to have to maintain a hearsay objection. It's a text-by-text issue, whether it falls within any exception. So we're not going to be able to agree that the entire document comes in. It's possible that some may come in, but I think that's going to be something that needs to be worked out between counsel afterwards.
So we can reserve it. He's still going to testify to it because we've already gone.
Right. I mean,
Understood, Your Honor. The testimony can come in, but that doesn't mean the document itself is admissible.
I can reserve on 1063 and we can figure out the redactions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Happen.
So about 4 months.
Okay, and you write "stop firing me." In that 4 months, how many times had Mr. Depp tried to fire you?
I believe that was the first time. And again, this was in reference to him not wanting to proceed and not wanting our help. This is actually, I'm sorry, this is the second time, because the first time was on the island, just as we were getting ready to leave, that he did not want to proceed. He didn't think he could do it. That changed after a conversation. He was back on board. And this came from, I think, followed that incident that we just referred to in the notes, where we were asked to come and visit with them, and where he didn't want to proceed. And again, at the end of that visit, he was back on board.
On August 24th, 2014, shows a text when it shows him, that's Mr. Depp, to you, David Kipper. And Mr. Depp wrote, forgot to tell you, had a hopefully very positive and free of ego squawk with Amber last night that went very well, ... And then I shot a few Negroes in a club on Sunset Boulevard. So far, so good, ... Do you recall this text from Mr. Depp?
No.
Okay. Was that Mr. Depp's typical language?
Again, I don't recall this specific email, so that may have been an attempt at humor.
Dr. Kipper, Kipper 10 is, and do you recognize this document?
No, but I'm looking at it.
Let me ask you this. Do you recall if arrowsarc@icloud.com is Ms. Hurd's email address?
I assume that by looking at this document.
Exhibit 5 at Kipper 101 at 9/22/14 at 1:25. You see it says, Ryan received text from patient stating that he had been in an argument with fiance and she had a, quote, nasty freak out and would like nurse to give him some, quote, some fucking knockout yum yum. RN instructed patient to take PRN Neurotin 300 mg, PRN and Seroquel 50 mg, and that RN was on her way. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And this is a note from Miss Lloyd?
Correct.
Okay. And then it says at 3:30, upon arriving at the home, patient was sitting in kitchen with scraped and bloody knuckles on our hand, meaning his right hand, correct?
Correct.
Patient stated he punched whiteboard in kitchen after fight. Patient stated he'd been texting his friend explaining why he didn't show up to play music, and fiance got upset he was not giving her enough support, and the fight escalated from there. Called the MD at 1:45 and instructed to give a stat order of Ambien 10 mg to help patient get to sleep as he has an early work day. Do you recall Miss Lloyd telling you about her visiting Mr. Depp and him having bloody knuckles and a scraped hand?
Specifics, I'm reading the note you're reading, and yes, I remember there was an incident.
And an incident where Mr. Depp had scraped and bloody knuckles on his hand?
As indicated in the note, yes. I did not see bloody knuckles. I did not see a punch board. This was a communication that I received through the notes from Ms. Lloyd.
And do you recall if you had it does say you recall, do you recall if you had a conversation with Ms. Lloyd about?
Yes, I recall having spoken about there had been an incident. I don't recall the specifics of that conversation.
Okay. On Kipper 5 at the date of 10/14, to show you there, which is on Kipper 110 of Kipper 5, and then going down to 1930, it says patient finished filming and was extremely agitated leaving the set. Patient kicked in the door of his trailer and refused to speak to director. Patient was verbally aggressive to another person on the set for no apparent reason. Per MD, patient is to take Xanax 2 milligrams to reduce his agitation at this time. You recall that, Dr. Kipper?
I do remember this entry, yes.
And you remember being told that Mr. Depp kicked in a door of his trailer and refused to speak to his director, correct?
I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember there was some disagreement between Mr. Depp and the director.
And where it says per MD, patient is to take Xanax 2 milligrams to reduce his agitation at this time. Is that an increase of Xanax that he was to receive?
Yes.
And you see at 10:15 at 6:45, it says patient awake and states he slept from 2200 to 4:30. Patient continues to be agitated about work and is verbalizing having desires to escape with drugs. Do you recall seeing this note?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall Miss Lloyd telling you this about Mr. Depp? You can
I don't remember if she told me that he wanted to use, but I do remember her telling me that he was upset.
And is that reflected in the note of 8:45? MD informed of his state of mind and continued agitated. He's on his way to assess patient. Is this
Can you
accurate?
Can you show me that note?
Yeah, it's right under, it's right here, 8:45.
Oh, okay.
The note's accurate that MD informed of patient's state of mind and continued agitated. He is on his way to assess patient.
Yes.
And then at 12:30, as patient had fallen asleep and is now awake talking with MD, it has been decided patient is under too much stress as it would be best for him to stay home and rest today. You see that?
Yes.
You recall having a conversation with Mr. Depp about his stress?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall anything that Mr. Depp told you? You can answer.
I remember he was very upset. I don't remember the specifics of that conversation, but I remember he was upset.
And how was Mr. Depp displaying that he was very upset?
He expressed himself very well, that he and the director had some misunderstanding and that he was upset about it.
Was Mr. Depp yelling?
No.
Was he doing anything to display his being upset other than his words?
Just his words.
You don't doubt the accuracy of this note, though, do you?
I can say that the note was written and I believe it was good reporting. I trusted my nurses that they would report what they were told. Not for the opiates.
Not for the opiates, is that what you said?
Correct.
More positive for cocaine, for instance?
Yes.
Now, on November 17th, 2014, Mr. Depp texted you and said, I have been to see Amber downtown. Yeah, interesting to say the least. Wow. Anyway, I'm still awake and don't foresee slumber arriving anytime soon to this broken instrument of a squash situated atop my shoulders. I would love to speak whenever you get a minute, dear David. Though honestly, if I were you, Debbie and or Aaron, I would, capital letters, run for the fucking hills, 3 exclamation points. I love you, Doc, ... Cannot thank you enough for all you've done, not only for me and my poor pack of wolves and my sweet, capital letters, fucking brave Mikey, ... These are the things that remind us that life should be a fucking gas. I'm waist deep in big muddy here, ... Hit me when you're drunk, ... It'll be far less boring. Love you long time, brother, ... And of course, the beautiful and luminous Chanel, ... And by now, 8'6" Sam, exclamation points. Mucho, mucho, ... From those of us who are not as others, X JD. You recall this text from Mr. Depp?
No, I don't. But clearly I see that I received that text.
Okay. Alex, can you put up Kipper 13, please? Do you recognize, Dr. Kipper, this email chain between you and Colin Cowan?
I don't remember it, but I'm refreshing myself with what you're showing me.
Who is Colin Cowan?
He's a psychologist that I had referred Amber to see.
Is there any, Dr. Kipper, are there any ethical rules to report reports of violence if you were to be told of violence?
If I were to see the violence, I would be obligated to make some reporting. I never saw any violence.
And you didn't report either Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard, correct? Because you didn't see it. Your testimony is you didn't see any violence from Ms. Heard or Ms. Heard to Mr. Depp, correct?
I never saw violence between the two of them.
Okay. You'd heard reports, but you never saw it as your testimony.
Correct.
Dr. Kipper, do you recognize Kipper 14, which it looks like is an email between you and Alan Blaustein?
Yes, I recognize this.
Okay. And who is Alan Blaustein?
Alan Blaustein is the psychiatrist that I referred Mr. Depp to.
And when you wrote this email as of March 1st, 2015, was it your understanding that Mr. Depp was in Australia at the time?
Yes.
At some point you flew to Australia, is that correct, in this March 2015 timeframe?
Yes.
Was that were you always planning to fly to Australia to visit with Mr. Depp in March of 2015?
No, I hadn't planned on it.
What made you fly to Australia?
He had wanted to see me. He had just wanted to check in. He wanted my company at that point.
He being Johnny Depp?
Yes.
Do you know when you arrived in Australia?
No, I don't. I can't recall.
Miss Lloyd had gone with Mr. Depp to Australia?
Yes.
She wasn't staying with Mr. Depp, correct?
No, she was not.
You know how far away Miss Lloyd was from Mr. Depp in terms of time to get from where she was staying to Mr. Depp's house?
I would guesstimate somewhere between 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
And when you went to Australia, how far away were you from Mr. Depp in terms of time?
Exactly the same.
Were you and Miss Lloyd in the same hotel?
Yes. Actually, that isn't true. I was in a hotel around the corner from where the nurses were staying.
And in Kipper 5, at Kipper 157, you see this note for 3/7/15 at 11:30. It says, MD received a text message from client that he had been arguing with wife and that he had cut his finger. According to patient, his assistant and security were on their way to pick him up. You see that?
Yes.
And whose note is this?
That would be from Miss Lloyd.
Okay. And is this note accurate?
Yes, it's accurate.
Okay. Now going back to Kipper 9. Give me a moment. At Kipper 7, at depth 7790, Here shows a text from Mr. Depp to you on March 7th, 2015 at 5 p.m. And it says, "Hi, fucked, man, had another one. I cannot live like this. She is as full of shit as a Christmas goose. I'm done. No more," all capital letters, 3 exclamation points. The constant insults, the demeaning, belittling, most heartbreaking spew that is only released from a malicious, evil, and vindictive cunt, 5 exclamation points. But you know what? 2 question marks, capital letters, far more hurtful than her venomous and degrading, endless, quote, educational ranting, ... 3 question marks. Is her hideously and purposefully hurtful tirades and her goddamn shocking treatment of the man she was meant to love above all, ... Here's the real deal, mate, ... Her obsession with herself, 2 question marks. It is far more important, ... She is, capital letters, so fucking ambitious, 3 exclamation points. She's so desperate for success and fame, ... That's probably why I was acquired, mate, ... 2 exclamation points. Although she has, capitalized, hammered me with what a sad old man has been I am, 3 dots. Cowan has done me the most cruel of favors, ... I'm so very sad, ... I cut the top of my middle finger off, ... What should I do? Exclamation point, 2 question marks. Except, of course, go to a hospital, ... I'm so embarrassed for jumping into anything with her, ... Capitalize, fuck the world, 3 exclamation points, JD. Do you recall this text from Mr. Depp?
I don't recall the text, but I do recall him reaching out after this incident.
Is this text a typical type of text you would receive?
In retrospect and in reading this, no, I think it reflected the fact that he was injured.
Right, and Mr. Depp told you in the text, "I cut the top of my middle finger off," correct?
That's what it says.
Okay. And then you responded, "Call me." You see that? That's the next text.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And did Mr. Depp call you?
I can't recall if he called me, but I know that I went to the residence.
Okay. And did you go with Miss Lloyd?
Yes.
Okay. And back to Kipper 5 at 1300, it says on March 7th, 2015, patient was having a hard time leaving the house, so security suggested the MD and RN go to house to see patient. Upon arrival at the house, patient was sitting in car ready to leave. MD assessed patient's finger and will spend more time with patient at the location he's being moved to. So did you see Mr. Depp in the house?
Yeah, I saw Mr. Depp outside the house in the car.
Okay. So this note is accurate, correct?
Yes.
Was Mr. Depp intoxicated when you saw him?
I don't.
Was Mr. Depp coherent?
Yes, quite.
He was quite coherent?
Yes.
What do you recall him saying to you?
I don't recall the conversation specifically, but part of his finger was missing.
Okay. But you said he was quite coherent, so it sounds like you have memories of what he was saying. What do you recall him saying?
I don't recall what he said. I remember that he was very clear in speaking to me.
Okay. What did he, other than his finger, what did he look like?
He looked like someone who just had part of his finger taken off.
Anything, what did the rest of his hands and arms look like?
Nothing unusual.
What did the house look like?
The house was a mess.
Anything else you can describe about the house?
There were things on the floor. There were things that had been thrown around. It looked like there were just things were out of order in that house.
What rooms did you see? What rooms did you look at in the house?
I was in the kitchen, and I believe I went downstairs. Don't really remember. I saw it was more of the same. That things looked out of place. Did it look like there was painting on the wall? Someone had written things on the wall? No, I do It did look to me like there was blood on the wall, not an actual painting.
How long were you in the house for?
10 minutes, 15 minutes.
And what were you doing in the house?
I wanted to see what happened. I was trying to figure out what happened.
Did you talk to Miss Heard?
I did.
Or what did Miss Heard say?
Again, I can't recall specifics other than they had a fight. And the specifics beyond that, I don't remember.
Before seeing Mr. Depp that day, when had you seen Mr. Depp previously?
I don't remember.
Do you know if it was the day before?
I can't remember.
Do you remember if this was the first time you saw Mr. Depp since your arrival in Australia?
Again, I can't remember.
Dr. Kipper, I'm showing you what's been marked as Kipper 15. And my question is, do you recognize this email?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And it's an email, and you told Miss Lisa Bean to please print for the chart. You see that at the top?
Yes.
Okay. So that is being printed for Mr. Depp's chart, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Raja Sahani emailed you. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. And he writes, "Thank you for your time, David. Attaches a copy of my notes for you to use as necessary. Re Robert Wells." And Robert Wells is Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
And this was from March 8th, 2015, correct?
Yeah.
Is it accurate that his heavily contaminated hand and fingers with dirt, grime, and
Yeah, thank you. I was going to move for the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 370.
370?
370, yes.
Just one moment, Your Honor. And Your Honor, we would maintain our objections on grounds of hearsay,
And
and the other objections asserted in our objections to the exhibits. This is an email communication between two non-parties to this case. It's hearsay. It's not within any exception, certainly not within the medical exception, and is not admissible.
I think it is in the medical exception because it's from one doctor to another doctor to treat Mr. Depp's hand.
I'll sustain the objection as hearsay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's accurate.
is there anything other than the coherent here that you find that's inaccurate?
No, the rest of that seems accurate.
Okay. And when you saw Ms. Heard at the house in this March 7th, 2015 timeframe, did she seem like she was on, was she coherent?
She was coherent.
Dr. Kipper, do you recall seeing Kipper 16 from the Gold Coast University Hospital?
Yes, I do.
And when do you recall seeing this note? At the time on March 8th, 2015, or around then?
It was around then. This was the emergency room doctor that saw him, and then he gave him sort of temporary care. Mm-hmm. And then he was referred to, Mr. Depp was referred to the other doctor that we spoke of before this, who was the surgeon, who was the hand surgeon, I believe.
Did you talk to this doctor who wrote this note?
Yes, I was present when Mr. Depp was being examined and treated.
And at this point, you were, as of March 14th, 2015, you were telling Mr. Depp that you weren't going to be able to treat Mr. Depp anymore. Is that correct?
The purpose of this note was to make sure that he was strictly compliant with everything because he needed to have his finger reconstructed. And I wanted to be sure that he was following our guidelines for the drug treatment.
Mr. Depp was not following your protocol as of March 1st, 2015, correct?
Yes, I had concerns.
Mr. Depp was not following your protocols that you were giving him as of March 14th, 2015, correct?
Correct.
Dr. Kipper, do you recognize Kipper 17?
Yes.
So you were withdrawing your care for Mr. Depp at least as of March 15th, 2015, correct?
I was withdrawing my care if he did not comply.
And as of March 15th, 2015, Mr. Depp was not complying, correct?
Correct.
Was Mr. Depp...
Can you pause that again? I'm sorry. Thank you. Move for the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 391.
391.
And, Your Honor, we would maintain our objections on grounds of hearsay, relevance, and 403. It's hearsay, not within any exception. It's a communication from a third party, not admissible.
It's not hearsay. It's a letter from Dr. Kipper that doesn't have any hearsay in it, and it's.
Well, it's hearsay because it's a letter from him out of court.
It's not offered for the truth of what happened. It's offered for what was occurring with Mr. Depp at the time of March 15th, 2015.
By definition,
the
Your
truth
Honor,
of the matter.
that's being offered for the truth.
It's offered for notice of when Dr. Kipper was not continuing his care of Mr. Depp.
I'll sustain the objection.
Thanks.
Compliant as of March 14th?
The answer is yes, he was not compliant. And the problem at hand, no pun intended, was he was about to have surgery. And for him to have surgery on a finger, he needed to be strictly compliant with what his medications were, what his behavior was. And I did not think he was stable for surgery. And I could not clear him for surgery. And that was what provoked the letter.
Right. And Mr. Depp had been breaking promises to remain sober, correct?
Correct.
And then, did you ever stop your care of Mr. Depp?
There was a week, I believe, and I'm fuzzy on the time frame, but there was a short period of time after sending that note before he connected back with me, asking me to take care of him and promising me compliance.
Was Mr. Depp compliant with the program going forward after March 15th, 2015?
He was compliant around his surgery and post-operative period.
And then he became uncompliant again?
I would have to refer to my notes, but I don't remember him being out of control. I remember him being, compliant with what we needed him to do. There were times when Mr. Depp sort of went underground. Some of that time was when he was out of the country and was hard to connect to. But I do not recall him going off the reservation as far as his drug and alcohol issues.
You recall him testing positive for cocaine after March of 2015?
I believe so. I can't tell you specifically when.
Okay. Going back to Kipper 9, there's a text message from Mr. Depp to you on March 19th, 2015. And he says, my most sincere apologies to you, Doc. I understand your decision based on my immunity to do the right thing, and I truly thank you for your concern. I must apologize for not having had the presence of mind to respect the man who has been the most kind and who has done more for me than anyone ever. There was no call for my spineless and base behavior toward you. I honestly understand the reasons for your concerns in your letter, and and can say to you now, they are no longer an issue. Thank you for everything. I've chopped off my left finger as a reminder that I should never cut off my finger again. I love you, brother Johnny. Do you recall this text from Mr. Depp?
Yes.
And is this the text, do you recall, where Mr. Depp was saying that he would be compliant going forward?
Yes.
Okay. You're basing it off of this text. Was there any other conversations with Mr. Depp?
We did. I know we had a conversation at some point around that time that validated this message.
And going to back to Kipper 5, which are, again, the notes. And we're going to go to Kipper 167. And at for 413 at 1500, the note at the bottom says, patient is in good spirits and said he's not smoked marijuana in 3 days. States he feels majority of his issues with his wife have been from him using drugs and alcohol. Patient states he'll no longer sneak/use and wants to enjoy clarity. Do you see that note?
I see that note.
And who is that note from? You or Miss Lloyd?
That's from Miss Lloyd.
Okay. Did Miss Lloyd report this to you?
In this note.
Okay. And there's no reason to question the accuracy of the note, correct?
Correct.
Now, at Dep 168, 1215, it says on April 15th, 1215, arrived at patient's home. Assistant was in the hallway, informed RN that patient was in a bad mood and told assistant he did not need anything from him today. RN was let in home by security and knocked on patient's bedroom door to let him know she was there. Patient screamed, "What?" RN informed patient she was just letting him know she was there and would be downstairs. RN, a little more down, RN left property and informed MD of the events. Do you recall Ms. Lloyd telling you about these events of April 15th, 2015?
Well, my memory is refreshed by looking at this note, yes.
And Mr. Depp had yelled at Ms. Lloyd, is that right?
I'm not sure he yelled at Miss Lloyd. I think he just yelled.
Okay.
Wanted to be heard. I can't say I wasn't there.
There's a text from Mr. Depp to you on April 15th, 2015. And he says, "My dear brother David, if there's a God, then I'm positive it's you. Thank you, darling man. I'm fine. I didn't know it was Debbie until I'd already thrown my voice toward the door. Thought it was Stephen, who is no small cauldron of hot water." 2 exclamation points. "I'll call Debbie to apologize. ... My boundless love and infinite thanks." So you recall that he texted you and called Miss Lloyd to apologize?
No, I don't recall that specifically. I'm reminded by this note, but I don't recall that specifically.
Now, Mr. Depp sent you a text on June 28th, 2015 that says, "Thank you, my darling Kipper. All those technical abbreviations left me fluxumed and in the dark." 3 exclamation points. "Soon, soon, I must see you and just hang out." 3 exclamation points. "My deformed finger and I have no friends." 3 exclamation points. "By the way, ... Amber and I have been absolutely perfect for 3 fucking months solid." 4 exclamation points. "I've locked my monster child away in a cage deep within, and it has fucking worked." 4 exclamation points. "We're goddamn best friends now." 3 exclamation points. "Amazing." 3 exclamation points. "Big love to you, my brother, ... JD. You see that?
Yes.
And what do you recall what is refreshed of your memory?
That there was concern that he was taking more Xanax than he should have been. And needed him to tighten that up and to go back to what he was prescribed. And also, there's a reference here to the phone calls. I had asked him not to respond or not to engage in these phone calls because those were that always precipitated problems between the two of them when they were in a bad phase.
Phone calls between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Correct.
All right. And Mr. Depp responds on July 1st, 2015, and says, I am and have been at peace for the last 3 to 4 months. It's been amazing, but she's somehow locked into this very unpleasant and belittling mode in the last 3 days. The accusations, the verbal abuse and insults, stooping to one, the most unjust. You haven't changed, you fucking desperate hypocrite. You didn't out the monster away. You're full of shit. You're a pathetic fraud. Man, you know how hard I have worked to put that motherfucker in its cage, and I did that, me. I took all those other problems and rid myself of them. There's a whole lot more. I won't bore you with it. The Xanax takes the edge off just a little. You know me. It would take more than a few to really affect me. Seroquel scares me for the reasons I were off of it. If you're worried about the Xanax, prescribe me something different, but with more potency. I don't take them all that often, just when the brain is inundated with this horrible badgering and half-truths from my wife by the WSY. I don't know if you meant by the way. Do you recall this text?
Again, I do in looking at it, yes.
Okay, and Mr. Depp again used the term monster, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Depp goes on in this text. He says, by the way, he sends another, sorry, here's my, by the way, Cohen should be run out of town in utter shame. He's a fucking sump who's done absolutely nothing but giving her the verbosity that she uses ever, whenever she feels like she must explain to me the psychology of life. 3 exclamation points. Ludicrous, 3 exclamation points. Yes, sir. Cowan should be shot in places no one wants to be shot in, 3 exclamation points. He's a goddamn charlatan big time, 3 exclamation points. I'm not going to continue to pay the fucking yes man to do nothing but stare at her tits and agree with everything she spews. ... Tell him to tell he's leaving the business or something, or I too will become a regular client, whether I am welcome or not. 3 exclamation points. Thanks and so sorry. I lobs G.U. You recall Mr. Depp informing you that he was upset with Dr. Cowan.
Yes, I remember clearly that he was upset with Dr. Cowan at a certain point.
You know, do you recall this text message from Mr. Depp that I just read to you?
Yes, in reading it, I do.
Okay.
All right, we want to go ahead and pause it. Looks like a good time to break it. It's 5 o'clock.
I paused it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, any objection to breaking there for the weekend? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll pick up with this testimony on Monday. Since I'm not going to see you for 3 days, I just want to reiterate the same jury instruction I gave you in the beginning of the case when you were first impaneled. Not all of it, but some of it. I just want to make sure you understand for the weekend that you're not to read anything about the case. You're not to watch anything about this case. You're not to listen to anything about the case. This applies to television, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and any online sites. Further, you're not to read, watch, or listen to anything about the case on any social media networking sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or similar sites. In addition, you must not communicate with anyone about the case, whether in person, over the phone, by email, text, or instant messaging, or by any other electronic or non-electronic means. This includes your friends, family, co-workers, acquaintances, and strangers. I also instruct you that you cannot do any research or make any inquiries about this case, whether online or by any other means. What you learn about this case is limited to what you learn in the 4 walls of this courtroom when proceedings are underway. All right? So have a good weekend, and we'll see you bright and early Monday, okay? Thank you. And for the litigants, I'll see you back on Monday. Please no posting on social networking sites, and don't talk to the press, all right? And for the attorneys, I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a long day. And I'm sure you've been doing your homework, right? So we should be able to get through a lot of deposition objections, right? Perfect. All right, thank you. All right, we'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you.